Ladies, gentlemen, ambiguous eggs. I can't speak for all of us, but I for one plan on dying someday. As such, I put together this tier list. Also because some of the other cause of death tier lists kind of fucking suck. Moving on. I have a wide selection of causes of death, mostly taken from this chart over here, with some other ones scattered in that I thought would be nice. So we'll start off with this first one, terrorism. You know, terrorism isn't all that great. You're out minding your own business, out on a walk with your family, picking up some bread or something, maybe going to work. And next thing you know, you're having the worst day of your life, if you weren't already, and it could possibly be the last day of your life. I'm going to have to give terrorism a D tier. Sometimes it's going to be instant. You have that soulless. But there's going to be a lot of times where there's going to be a lot of suffering. A lot of just horrendous stuff going on. Next up, we have cancer. Now, I don't need to tell any of you, but cancer fucking sucks. It's scary. It can take a long time to kill you. You find out about it, and then months later is when you're on your death's bed. As your cells slowly turn against you, you have this lump growing inside of you, getting bigger and bigger. Can't treat it. Well, if you can treat it, you ain't dying from it. If you're dying from it, then that means it can't be treated. And or it didn't get caught. That could be it too. You could have had a pancreatic cancer or a brain tumor that killed you before it was caught. So all in all, from really fucking sucks to die without even knowing you had it. Average that out, I'm going to have to throw cancer into C tier. Fire. Now, I've seen enough videos on the internet to know that fire isn't really that great of a way to die if you are the one on fire. Most fire deaths, though, aren't from you burning. Rather, everything burning around you is taking up the oxygen and filling the room with toxic chemicals, and those toxic chemicals are what kill you. Still not that great, but not as bad as actually burning to death. Not as bad as like your skin melting off. So fire, we're going to give a D tier. Here I lumped respiratory diseases and or infections into the same thing. You can differentiate between upper respiratory, lower respiratory, and such, but all in all, it's still going to be roughly the same thing. A lot of coughing. Your brain is going to be slowly starved of oxygen as your lungs are no longer able to take in the air that you need to survive. And that's ultimately what's going to be killing you a lot of times. Sometimes the upper or the lower respiratory affections can start causing heart issues, and that can be what finally kicks the bucket. But we're going to get into heart disease and stuff like that later. We're going to just focus on rote lung failure. So as your brain slowly becomes starved of oxygen, you're going to become hypoxiated, I think the term is. Slowly starved of oxygen, you're going to start going a little crazy. Well, not crazy, just out of sorts. So I'm going to throw it into C tier. I'm going to throw it into C tier above cancer. Yeah, I think that's fine. It's still not that great because you're still having all the coughing and stuff, and that's just not good. Next up is nutritional deficiencies. So this is going to be stuff like not having enough B12, not having enough calories, starving to death. That's nutritional deficient. Starving to death is not a good way to go. It takes weeks to happen, and your body is fighting against you that whole time. It gets to the point where your body is turning everything inside of you into calories, into ATP. It starts breaking down your muscle. It starts breaking down your tendons. It even starts to attack the fat in your brain. So I'm going to have to give nutritional deficiencies an F. That is not a good way to go. And now we have heart disease. From my understanding, this accounts for roughly 30-something% of all deaths globally. Also, from my understanding, is that most deaths due to heart disease happen while the individual is asleep. That's pretty nice. Other than that, though, you do have a lot of issues, though, as your blood pressure starts to not be that great. You're going to have a lot of issues with delirium, with your fatigue. Uh, your physical prowess is going to dramatically decrease. So, not quite an A tier, but I think a solid B. If most people who have heart disease are dying rather peacefully, then I think it's an okay one. It's also probably the one I'm most statistically going to have. Now here we have heat-related deaths. Now this isn't just heat isn't hot. This is heat isn't cold too. And most heat-related deaths are going to be exposure to the elements, being left out in the desert, getting lost in the woods in winter. And this, I don't think it's that great. It's definitely not the worst way to die. Absolutely not. It's a pretty quick death, from what I understand, especially on the colder end of the spectrum. It's rather quick and not a lot of suffering. The hot end, though, anybody who's had a heat stroke is going to know that is horrendous. You don't want to go through that. So I'm going to put it at the top of D tier, maybe the bottom of C. Top of D, I'm sticking with that for now, though. Diabetes. We all know at least one person with diabetes if you don't have it yourself, and if you don't carefully monitor your blood sugar, it will kill you. There's multiple ways that diabetes can kill you. Hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, going into a sugar-induced coma. Doesn't sound that great. I mean, I've had some pretty high blood sugar at points, and it's not great. You get very confused, very delirious. Diabetes puts you at higher risk for certain types of liver cancers, I believe, which also not that great. So I'm gonna throw it in at the top of C tier. I think that's a fair assessment. Mosquito-related diseases. This includes yellow fever and malaria, among others. Malaria being particularly nasty, and you have to deal with it a lot in the video game Far Cry 2. Malaria causes flu-like symptoms and can cause further complications that lead to death. Overall, that doesn't sound too bad. It's definitely a top-tier contender, but there is a reason that people have worked extremely hard to try to eradicate malaria and yellow fever from many parts of the world. I think I will put it into the bottom of B tier for now. I might reconsider that at another point. Drowning is up next, and I can just tell you right now, drowning fucking sucks. In fact, I've been told it's one of the most painful things a human can experience. So that should be enough to tell you that it's just going straight to the bottom of F. Just straight to the bottom. No coming back. Animal attacks are next. This wasn't on the chart that I showed before. This is something I decided to add on. Now, animal attacks have multiple ways that they can kill you, either from the animal maiming you to death, or from rabies or some other kind of animal-borne infection. Death via rabies, terrible. Death by being attacked by an animal, terrible. A lot of predators will start eating you alive from the asshole. Yeah, so we're going to put it top of F tier. Maybe come back and put it at the bottom of D, but top of F for now. Falling. Now, falling is a pretty fascinating one. I don't remember if it was Newton or if it was Einstein that said this, but they said that a person falling at terminal velocity will have one of the most surreal experiences imaginable, as their brain switches from a frame of reference of them falling to the ground coming up to meet them. Now that seems pretty awesome, not gonna lie. So I'm kind of tempted to put falling at the top of A tier. You get to experience one of the most interesting things the brain can comprehend. before a near instantaneous death if you get the height right. Um, a fall from 6 feet directly onto your head has a 50% chance, I think it was in one of my safety training videos, to just instantly kill you. Just no chance of coming back. You're just dead. So if you bring up the height even higher than that, then it's pretty assured that falling's going to kill you. Accidental suicide. Now, accidental suicide includes things like accidental overdose, accidentally shooting yourself with a gun, accidentally stabbing yourself, I would suppose, would also be included in that. Accidentally bifurcating yourself with a steel wire or something, anything. Accidental suicide is a lot of things. And while I'm sure a few accidental suicides do result in a very quick death, I doubt all accidental suicides are quick and painless. In fact, I would hazard to guess a lot of them are probably very scary. If you get crushed by something, say you're lifting something heavy all by yourself and you drop it on yourself, getting crushed, then you're not going to be having a good time. So I'm going to put accidental suicide in the kind of middle of the pack for C. And that's also going to segue us into regular suicide. Now, I'm making an assumption here that most people who commit suicide are going to be choosing methods of suicide that are relatively quick and relatively painless. Saying that, though, a very small portion of suicides are accounted for by gun-related suicides. A lot of other suicides involve jumping in front of vehicles, overdosing on pills or on drugs, and jumping off of high surfaces, among other things. Cutting your wrists, not the best way of killing yourself. It will work. Maybe cut your abdomen, go for an artery in the leg or something. But with that said, with all of the painless options of suicide that are available, I'm going to have to put that in A tier. Alzheimer's. A large portion of the population will get Alzheimer's at some point, and that's kind of sucky for the people around them. As the confusion and memory loss sets in, people start defaulting back to old routines. They start remembering themselves in the past. They forget about people who have been around them. And all the while, this adds a burden on the caretakers. The person with Alzheimer's, however, probably isn't really suffering all that much. You know, the protein deposits that are slowly growing in their brain and slowly killing them are causing them to forget about things, but they don't know that they forgot about those things. Rather, they just think that they woke up in 1955 in, some state they used to live in. Sure, they don't remember their daughter, but hey, maybe they just think that the daughter is some attractive-looking person from the town. Alzheimer's, top of C. Automotive accident. Automotive accidents account for quite a large percentage of deaths, if I remember correctly, and very, very, very few of them are instantaneous death. Quite a high percentage of them are fairly slow, drawn out. A lot of people die while rescue is there trying to get them from the vehicle. A lot of people die in transit to the hospital. So all of that into consideration, I'm going to have to put automotive accidents into top of D tier. Top of D tier. HIV/AIDS. These immunocompromising diseases aren't usually what kills you, from what I understand. Usually it's another infection that comes along, and since your immune system is weakened, you're not able to fight that other infection, and that's what kills you. But the cause of death is attributed to HIV and AIDS, because if you didn't have the HIV or AIDS, then that bout of flu wouldn't have killed you. Overall, though, the actual method of dying is still going to be the same avenue that respiratory diseases or infections will be killing you. That said, though, I just realized that a lot of the coughing, a lot of the fever and stuff like that from other infections are actually your immune system fighting it. So dying from the flu while you have HIV might actually not be as bad as otherwise. So yeah, I think I'm going to put that above respiratory infection, but it's still not making it to B tier. Substance overdoses. Now this, I lumped in alcohol overdose as well as other substances. Substances mostly being comprised of drugs, like heroin, meth, alcohol. There's a bunch of others that you can overdose on. Not marijuana, though. Can't really overdose on that. Or LSD. You can overdose on Tylenol, though. Be careful, kids. Substance overdoses, from what I understand, a lot of them, like heroin, are going to be relatively painless. You're just all out of sorts for that death. Overall, I'm going to have to throw substance overdose into top or bottom of B tier. Bottom of B tier. And I think that's what our final list is going to look like. I'm happy with that. If you have any disagreements or any other ideas for how you would like it laid out, the template will be in the description below. So go right ahead. Or in the comments below, you can tell me how you would prefer to die. Anyways, that's it.